A single construction company can raise a 100-story skyscraper, pave a highway system, or build a hospital complex worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Cranes lift steel 40 stories into the sky. Trucks haul concrete in an endless loop, day after day. Hundreds of workers move through scaffolding for months, sometimes years, until a finished building stands where an empty lot used to be. Looking at something like that, it's easy to assume the company behind it must be swimming in profit. But here's the strange part. That same company can finish the project, hand over the keys, and walk away with almost nothing to show for it. Sometimes it loses money on a job worth tens of millions of dollars. $100 million contract does not mean $100 million in profit. It might not mean 10 million. It might mean almost nothing at all. So if building something enormous doesn't guarantee a big payday, how do construction companies actually make money? To answer that, you have to go back before a single shovel touches the ground. Every project starts as an opportunity, not a contract. A city needs a bridge. A developer wants an office tower. A hospital network needs a new wing. Construction companies compete for the right to build it, and that competition begins with a number. The company has to estimate, down to remarkable detail, exactly what the project will cost. How much steel, how much concrete, how many workers, for how many months, how much fuel the machinery will burn, how much it will cost to insure the site against everything that could go wrong, get that number wrong, and everything after it is built on a mistake. Once the estimate is ready, the company submits a bid. And here's where the first real tension in this business shows up. Bid too high, and a competitor wins the job instead. Bid too low, and you might win the contract only to lose money delivering it. The company that wins isn't always the one with the lowest price. It's usually the one that priced the project accurately enough to survive it. Cheap bids win contracts. Smart bids win businesses. Winning the contract feels like the finish line. It isn't. It's the starting gun. The moment the paperwork is signed, the company becomes legally responsible for delivering an entire project on a fixed timeline for close to a fixed price, no matter what happens along the way. Now imagine a company wins a $50 million contract to build a mid-rise office building. $50 million sounds like $50 million of opportunity, but almost none of that money belongs to the company. It belongs to everyone the company still has to pay. Workers need wages every single week, whether the project is ahead of schedule or behind it. In a typical build like this, labor alone might quietly absorb close to a third of the entire contract. Materials take another huge bite. Steel, concrete, glass, wiring, all of it purchased and delivered, often before the company has even been paid for using it. That could easily be another quarter of the 50 million, gone before the structure is halfway finished. Then come the subcontractors handling the electrical work, the plumbing, the elevators, each one expecting payment on its own schedule, each one adding up to another significant slice. Equipment has to be rented or owned, insured, fueled, and maintained, chewing through more of the budget, whether it's actively working or just sitting there. Add in permits, site logistics, transportation, safety compliance, and the interest on any borrowed money. And by the time everyone has been paid, somewhere between 90 and 95% of that $50 million is already gone. What's left is the company's actual profit. On a project this size, that might be $2 or $3 million, sometimes less. This is the part most people never see. Construction companies don't get paid to build something impressive. They get paid for what's left over after building it. Remember, these numbers are simply illustrative, not fixed industry figures. Every project is different, but the pattern holds. The contract value and the company's actual take-home are two very different numbers, and even that thin slice isn't guaranteed to stay intact. Say the project runs 3 months longer than planned. That doesn't just mean 3 extra months of construction. It means 3 more months of wages, 3 more months of equipment sitting on site, costing money whether it's actively working or parked and idle. 3 more months of overhead, insurance, and financing costs quietly accumulating in the background. And 3 more months before the company's crews and equipment are free to start the next paying job. A delay doesn't just slow down one project. It creates a ripple that reaches into the next one. This is why time isn't just a scheduling detail in construction. It's a financial force. Every additional day on site is a day of expense expenses stacking up against a price that was locked in months earlier. Construction companies don't just manage money, they manage the clock, because the clock is quietly spending money whether anyone is watching it or not. And delays are rarely the only threat to a project's margin. Dig into the ground and find unexpected rock or contaminated soil, and costs climb before construction even properly begins. A supplier raises prices without warning. A single shipment arrives a week late, and suddenly an entire crew has nothing to do but wait, still earning wages for standing still. A safety incident happens on site. Work stops. Inspectors arrive. Insurance gets involved. What should have been a 2-day pause turns into a 2-week investigation. And every one of those days costs money without producing an inch of progress. None of this shows up in the original bid. All of it quietly erodes the difference between a profitable project and a losing one. And sometimes the damage was already done before the first worker ever showed up. A single estimating mistake, buried in a bid that looked perfectly reasonable on paper, can turn a winning contract into a losing job the moment real-world conditions expose it. There's also a distinction here that trips up people who assume profit is the whole story. Profit and cash flow are not the same thing. A project can be profitable on paper and still put a company in serious danger. Construction companies typically get paid in stages, through progress payments tied to how much work has been completed. But they often have to pay their own workers, suppliers, and subcontractors well before that next payment arrives. Money goes out every single week. Money comes in occasionally, in chunks, often with delays attached. Profit tells you whether a project is worth doing. Cash flow determines whether the company survives long enough to finish it. So how does a construction company protect itself against all of this? It starts with accuracy, precise estimating, so the bid reflects reality instead of guesswork. It continues with discipline, tight scheduling, so machines and crews aren't sitting idle burning money without producing progress. It means managing suppliers carefully, locking in material prices before they climb, and choosing subcontractors who can be trusted to deliver on time and on budget. It means running a safe site, because accidents don't just harm people, they generate delays and expenses that eat directly into margin. And it means watching cash positions constantly, so a profitable project on paper doesn't become a cash crisis in practice. There's another tool that matters more than most people realize: the change order. When a client requests something beyond the original scope, that additional work isn't covered by the original price. A well-run company treats every change as a new negotiation, protecting the margin instead of quietly absorbing the cost of someone else's decision. Hot all of that well, and something interesting happens. A project that finishes on time, on budget, and to a high standard doesn't just generate profit once, it generates trust. That trust turns into a referral, and the referral turns into a repeat client. Repeat clients turn into larger contracts, because a company with a proven track record gets invited to bid on bigger, more complex work. Growth in construction rarely comes from simply hiring more workers. It comes from building stronger systems, better estimating, sharper scheduling, tighter purchasing, and project managers who can run several jobs at once without losing control of any of them. Eventually, some of the most successful companies stop thinking only like builders. They start thinking like owners. Instead of only earning a construction fee to build something someone else designed, they buy the land themselves. They finance the project, they build it, and then they sell it or lease it once it's finished. That single shift changes the entire economics of the business. Instead of capturing a slim margin on construction costs, the company can capture the full value created by the finished property. Building for a client and building as a developer are two different businesses wearing the same hard hats. Running alongside all of this is a quieter shift that's been reshaping the industry for years. Drones now survey sites in minutes instead of days. Three-dimensional building models catch design conflicts before they ever become expensive mistakes poured in concrete. GPS-guided equipment digs and grades with a precision human operators can't match by eye. Digital project management systems track budgets, schedules, and materials in real time instead of in a stack of paperwork discovered too late. None of this is really about technology for its own sake. It's the same idea the entire business runs on, just sharpened. The companies that manage information better end up managing money better. So the picture that started this story turns out to be almost the opposite of what it first looked like. A construction company isn't handed a fortune the moment it wins a massive contract. It's handed a fortune's worth of responsibility responsibility, obligations, and risk, and it has to convert that responsibility into a profit through thousands of decisions made along the way. Every accurate estimate, every well-managed subcontractor, every day saved on schedule, every dollar of cash flow kept healthy. All of it adds up to the difference between a company that thrives and one that quietly goes broke, building something the world will admire for decades. Construction was never really just about building structures. It's about managing an enormously complicated business hidden behind the scaffolding, where every single decision quietly decides who keeps the money in the end.